Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be ranking the LRs. As you can see, recently we got the new LR Glocks, so I thought I'm going to do sort of I'm going to rank them again because I did that when Margaret came out. I want to do it again just so it's sort of like up to date, because of course stuff has changed, you know, metas have changed, characters' usefulness has changed, all that kind of stuff. So I thought I would do a video going over them, and of course I'll be going over their uses. You know, did they drop with a use immediately, and what is their current use to this day? Anyway, let's get on to it. Of course, in the number 1 slot, it just has to be Liz. Liz is one of the best PvE characters in the game. When she released, Nidhogg was quite a big problem still for some players, even with some of Margaret. For me especially, I was actually still struggling with it, even though I had some of Margaret, mainly because I was using Green Liz, and Green Liz wasn't that good. So when, of course, this Liz came out, I got her as soon as I possibly could, because she was insanely busted. And she still is quite busted to this day, and you see it being used in, you know, most final bosses for, like, top score. Of course, sometimes you don't, sometimes you see a different race, depending on what the challenges are. But most of the time, you will see Liz on like the top team, because she is extremely good. She provides you with 30% basic stats, as well as passive healing, as well as healing, giving her more ult gauge every time she plays a skill. So what this means, you play her ultimate, you play another skill, you actually get 5 ult gauge, and you can Liz cycle. You can Liz cycle your ult, which is insanely broken on Nidhogg, and insanely broken anywhere else, because of course, her ultimate gives you an attack-related stat boost, which of course does scale with ult level, unfortunately, being at 6.6 is 30%, 1.6 is 5%, but it also gives your entire team 2 ult gauge, which, in my opinion, is the insanely broken bit of it. She came with the use, which is of course Nidhogg, and PvE in general, and guess what? She still stayed. She hasn't been up, she hasn't been replaced. Her CC isn't the best, don't get me wrong, like, it's just like this is my perfect Liz HP defense gear. 71k. She's just quite good substats, honestly. That crit res, the fact that her crit res is higher than her crit defense is actually quite funny. But 4.6, you know, all her outfits are maxed. It's not like I haven't maxed out all her outfits are completely maxed. She's got basically as much CC as she can get. All she's missing is 2 ult levels and of course True Awakening. Would I recommend True Awakening her? Probably not. I would say probably Mael's a better shout, because he's, in my opinion, more universal. You know, you've got Nidhogg, which of course he's quite good on, and of course PvE as well. PvP as well, where Liz only really resides in PvE. Yes, technically you could use her in PvP, because the only thing that doesn't work is like this top part of her passive. The bottom half of her passive works everywhere, which is cool, but the top half of course only works in PvE, which is completely fine. You still get the regenerate, which is actually quite good, because that was her original passive anyway, so I'm kind of happy they didn't immediately just make it PvE only. And basically ruin the bottom half of her passive, which is nice. Also, Relic, insanely broken, increase allies' HP related stats by 15%. That's like having Transcendent Barn on the field. Like, that Transcendent Barn gives you 5% HP per, you know, Sin, Human, or Fairy, right? She just gives you 2 straight away, and it works in the back. Insane. Also, her defense related stat buff, kind of good. 30% at level 1, 60% at level 2, and 100% at level 3. That works in PvP. And let me tell you, you put Liz, the LR Margaret, and then Tristan, and then what's his name, Mael on a team. It's the most painful team you can verse. They don't take damage. They just absorb it all. I don't know how. It's because of this woman. She just absorbs everything. On to number 2 now. And number 2 is Margaret. Margaret, she, in my opinion, is quite good in PvE still. Yes, you know, you see her on these top PvE teams, for example, for Final Boss, for Knighthood Boss, you know, for whatever, right? But she can still be used as a replacement for Summer Margaret if you don't have her. My friend doesn't have her, and she uses, and he now uses Red Margaret. Sorry, Blue Margaret, who is quite good, because her buff, yes, technically her buff doesn't change at level 1, but at level 2 it does. The actual stats guide, and same with level 3. But you also get the increased crit chance and crit damage, which of course helps your entire team, including Freya, if you have Freya and her relic, because she counts as a goddess. So it's actually quite useful. And the Nidhogg does debuff you quite a bit sometimes. Yes, sometimes it goes through a phase where it just won't debuff you for like 2 phases, but it's still quite good. Of course, the stats increase is really nice. I don't think she's running HP defense. She's 73k. She hasn't got the best HP defense on currently. But But yeah, she's an overall quite good character. Her ultimate is quite powerful. It's a single target. Yeah, it has the damage increase as well as the disable, which of course only works in PvP, but is also quite broken in PvP and can even, in my opinion, change the, basically guarantee you the win sometimes. But of course, cleanse is quite common on this meta. What I mean is passive cleanse. You've got Melee, who of course has passive cleanse. You've got Demon King. Of course, it's Zahard coming soon as well. You all have passive cleanses to some degree. But overall, Margaret, if you use her in PvP, she's got high CC, so you're probably going to go first. You know, Queen Elizabeth has quite high CC. Mael is quite high CC. Late, I'm not too sure. Tristan, I'm not too sure, because I don't really have the best sets for them, so I can't really say anything. But Margaret overall is a very good LR. Like, yeah, at the start, we thought, it's not really that big of an improvement for what she currently is. But it's fine because she was still usable and it was still an improvement. You know, it's not like the improvement was unnoticeable, the improvement was slightly noticeable. Mael can hit more crits, and the difference between Mael critting and non-critting can sometimes be quite a stupidly large amount. So it does sometimes help to have LR Margaret, and you know, she's quite a good LR. I'm pretty sure we got Margaret for free as well. My Margaret is 6'6". I went from like 2'6" to 6'6" in like 2 banners, which was kind of insane. Well, sorry, 1 banner, which was Queen Elizabeth. I got her from 2'6" to 6'6", which was really nice because I got her LR like I think the same day I got her 6'6" as well. On to the next one. Next one is of course LRS Escanor. He is a absolute beast when it comes to anything PvE related, especially those like event bosses. He has, you know, him. You put Roxy. You know, you put Mikasa, you put someone else on the team, and you can basically vaporize any boss super quickly. And that's what makes Escanor so good. Also, he's a super common character to have, because he's in the SSR tickets. And back in the day, he was basically on every banner. And the thing was, I don't want, the saying was every time you summon a banner, I don't want green Escanor. And 9 times out of 10, you'd get red Escanor instead, because the game would hear your prayers and give you the other one, just to screw you over. But overall, he's a super good character. PvE-wise, I do think that when, Overlord released, it did sort of, like, put him down a few pegs on the ladder, because, like, yes, technically he can remove the buffs in PvP. I think he lost a place in PvE. Mainly for dogs. The best dogs team at one point was humans. Then of course Albedo came along, and it was like she bypasses all damage, no, not all damage reduction, all damage caps, and it's just, yeah. But overall, Escanor's still a really good LR in my opinion. I actually still have this outfit on, because the thumbnail I did ages ago. I just put this one on. And the King Escanor, there we go. But overall, his relic's super easy to get. He's a super easy character to get, so you probably have him, and if you have him, you might as well LR him. He's quite a good character. Whenever humans come back into meta, Escanor's always on there, because Escanor's ability to provide these eternal flames, which basically means the enemies take 15% more damage, is actually quite insane. Because 15% more damage taken, bear in mind that can stack up to 4 times, so 60% increased damage taken to the enemies is a lot of damage increase taken. Especially, you know, if you're then, you know, using the Transcendent Barn as well, you know, you can hit even harder. And when Barn starts to hit insanely hard, you can basically just one-shot everyone. When you get like max debuffs, Eternal Flames, everyone, you can start one-shotting people. It's actually absurd how strong he is. But the reason I put him in 3rd is because I believe the other two, Margaret and Liz, have a lot more, in my opinion, usability. They're used more today than I see people using LRS Escanor. The only time I really see people using LRS Escanor is because he's got a lot of CC and they just stick him in the back. Because then, let's just say, I don't know, Barn dies on your Sins team, right? Escanor comes in, and then you still have, Melee still has the basic stats, and Merlin still has her relic active. Which, sort of, like, is kind of what you want. So, overall, he's good. Would I say he's the best? No, but would I recommend getting him? Of course, if you're a newer player, yeah, because he's actually quite insane. And of course, with the new upcoming Tower of God collaboration, we're going to see Yuri, who is quite a good character and kind of makes humans not back on top, but it enables them to like stand their ground in the current meta, which is something we don't really see very often. Is one character being able to completely shift a meta? Yeah, technically with Albedo, yeah, we had like. Actually, no, that's actually completely wrong. You like Demon King. I didn't really think of stuff like that. But overall, it's quite a good character, quite a good LR for beginners. I would say it's probably the best LR for beginners because, you know, a new player is probably not going to have Margaret. They're probably not going to have Lostvayne. They're probably not going to have the new Legend Liz, which is of course New Year Liz. which we have an LR variant of, and then Glox. Well, ain't no way you're gonna make LR Glox, trust me. On to the next one. Is Lostvayne. So the reason Lostvayne is so low on this list, yes, he is still quite useful today, but I think he's been mainly taken to a PvE character now. Is the fact you really need his relic to deal a lot of damage. Like his relic, if you don't know what his relic does, increase the hero's damage dealt by 10% for every orb in the hero's ult gauge. And it's a Nidhogg relic, which means it's not really that obtainable for a newer player, which is and the damage difference is insane. When I did my how to build for him, or when I did something for him, I tested his damage with and without relic, and it's like 200,000 difference with a gold skill, which is a lot of damage. Bear in mind, he's currently rocking HP defense, but yeah, it's still quite a lot of damage. Substats wise, I do think that this melee definitely got the right treatment. Of course, he was the first LR, so of course he was like busted. He was insanely busted. Like these stats here were like insane. Nowadays, it's like melee. The new melee has more than that, and he's a UR character, you know. But his passive was quite good. So basically, what his passive initially was basically when he got crit, ranked up his hand. But now as only gets crit, he gets crit defense, which of course will help him tank more, because he actually has quite low crit resistance, which is why I think Lostvayne Meliodas is probably the most thought out LR in the game. Maybe because he was the first and they thought let's put a little bit more effort in, but I feel like this man had a lot of thought going into him, because he has really low crit resistance, but really high crit defense, and plus he can gain another 90% more crit defense, so it sort of seems like they knew what they were doing, and they were like, okay, we're going to make sure that his passive, like, you know, enables him to still, and like we're going to give him like the stats he needs so he can be crit, but still tank it at the same time and still, you know, be a good character. And he was very strong at the time of his release. He was extremely powerful, and he basically dominated Hero Arena, PvP. Some places in PvE he was quite good as well, mainly talking about like Deer, where like pretty much any character can be good. And then of course when he gets crit and his hand ranks up, he's a 10% attack related stat boost up to 5 times, which you don't actually ever see. You never actually see like someone with 5 melee buffs, because it's such a rare occurrence. And you got his ultimate as well, which of course, unfortunately it double scales. What I mean is the buff scales and the multiplier scales here. And of course this scales as well. So the difference between 1.6 and 6.6 is absurd, only because it has 3 different scalings, which is of course the buff you get, you've then got the actual damage increase of the actual ultimate, and then you've actually got the effect increase as well. Which is, it's kind of, I never realised that he had all 3 increased. I thought it was only like the buff stays the same but everything else gets increased. But overall, he's like an okay LR. He's been replaced of course by the new melee, but that sort of happens every year anyway. But can I see him still having use? Probably. You know, Chaos PvP, or I see a lot of people using him on Hell OG Demon, because he can crit, because he's got such high crit chance, and of course this is a service skill. He can deal a lot of damage, which means like people use him and they use Demon King, basically just to one-shot the second phase, which is like, it's super easy, and you know, that helps me out farming demons. Outfits wise, once again, I have all outfits. For all of my LRs, I have every outfit for them. Either I've like bought like one, I think I bought like 1, maybe 2 weapons for melee. Headgears I didn't buy anything, and then of course I have his relic, but outfits I didn't buy anything either, because outfits you get a ton from melee. You have like 2.5 anniversary, which is actually one of my favourites outfits for melee. I just never run it, don't know why. But on to of course the expected final LR. I don't need to explain this, do I? He is the current worst LR. He released without a purpose, which is not something you really want to do. He didn't, in my opinion, get too big of a buff. Like, yes, he gives your entire team 30% defense-related stats, but that doesn't really provide much, in my opinion. 30% defense-related stats is okay, but then when you look at, you know, the new melee's defense lower, you realize that if you have Glox on the field and they have max melee debuffs on you, you've cancelled out your defense-related stats, and then Glox does nothing. I just want you to just think about that for a second. His only use, turn 1, is defense-related stats. If you go second, it's defense-related stats. But if they play three AoE skills, they use double melee AoE, your defense-related stats are now neutral, and now he can deal even more damage to you. Like you didn't even have the buff in the first place. In my opinion, you need to go first. You need a full fairy team. His relic being only fairies, in my opinion, the worst decision they could have ever made. should have been fairies and commandments, and I would have been completely fine with that. Even the fact he didn't work with Demon King, I would have been completely fine with that. I could run a full commandments team, and I would have been more happy being absolutely destroyed in PvP using a full commandments team, knowing that his relic is still working, than using demons and realizing, damn, this guy actually used to be used for demons, or the red variant used to be used for demons, and now we're stuck with this. Now he can only be used with fairies. And not only can he be used with fairies, he's horrible. His Sever skill, he has a lot of crit damage. He's probably, actually, I think he's running attack crit damage currently. I'm not actually giving him UARC here. He's currently just holding it. But, like, I had a level 2 skill in PvP. I don't know who I hit. I think I hit Estarossa. I had type advantage. I did 12k. You heard me correctly. With Relic. This current build, and by the way, if you're wondering I have all weapons, I have all weapons as well. And I have his Relic. And he did 12k. To type advantage character. Which I could probably do with Beatrice. You know, I could do that with a Beatrice level 2. I can probably even get more damage with Beatrice. Using a level 2 skill. And then, they didn't actually change his kit very much. What I mean is his skills. It's Bleed, and they just slightly increase the multiplier. This skill, they just slightly increase the multiplier. It's got no effect at level 1. Think about this. A no effect skill on an LR. Guess what? Melee had a charge skill. Absolutely horrible. They gave it Infect. You know, you look at Lostvayne once again. His single target skill only had the increased ult gauge. They gave it Sever. Escanor's Ignite skill, which only used to be remove buff at level 2, they made a remove buff at level 1, and it applies more Ignites. You know, his single target skill, which once again used to give him ult gauge, gave him Blaze, which does more damage to enemies depending on how many Blaze stacks they have. All these LRs have had, you know, not every single one of their skills has had some sort of effect. Liz's AoE got given Flood, for goodness sake. The first AoE in the game to have a flood effect. No, I think it's not the first, but it's one of the first. One of the few. And then, of course, you have Margaret, who got given... Margaret sort of got the Glox treatment, but Margaret was a half-decent character day 1 anyway. Glox wasn't a good character day 1, so it's horrible. Like, yeah, you attack and disable... Sorry, you attack, disable, and buff disable them. You know, and at level 2, you only do it for 2 turns, but look at that multiplier. It's not good. Like, the multiplier doesn't change. There's no effect. Like, give it, like, Pierce or Charge. I wouldn't even care if it got Charge, for goodness sake. Just give it something to increase its damage dealt. It's so horrible. Like, yeah, you see these videos of these YouTubers using him with, like, a full fairy team. But guess what? 90% of the players don't have that fairy team. Because that fairy team is super exclusive and is, like, released in the past 3 months. And guess what? They're all seasonals. Even though Elaine is on the fairy banner, the fairy ticket banner, it doesn't matter, because the chances of you have a higher chance summoning for Elaine and hoping to get her unfeatured than you do from that banner. That banner, in my opinion, needs a full all those banners need a full rework, because they're completely useless. I'll show you what I mean. If I was to summon on... Where's Mr. King? Is he here? Mr. King here. Her rate is 0.25. And now I go to the fairy banner. I go all the way down here. I have an extra 0.1% chance of pulling her non-rated on a non-rated banner than I do on this banner. I have a higher chance chasing unfeatures than I do from those tickets. And those tickets aren't given out very often. You may get like 2 a week. Bear in mind the chance of you getting an SSR is the same as getting an SSR on a banner anyway. So you might as well just chase an unfeatured. You have a higher chance of chasing her from an unfeatured than you do from that banner. But of course, you know, most people are probably going to get her from that banner, because, you know, or unless they get it from a banner in the future, which has her on, which probably is. His outfit is really cool, though. That is one thing I do give him. His ultimate did also, like, they didn't increase the multiplier, like, at all. Like, even... Let me just rephrase you. Let me just let you know. Escanor had the highest multiplier ultimate in the game. He got an LR. The multiplier got increased. His multiplier is 1,440 with an effect that makes it so he ignores 100% crit chance. Sorry, crit resistance. Think about that. 1,440 and he ignores crit, and it's a single target, right? So I'm comparing it to another single target ultimate that only does lower basic stats by 30%. And guess what the meta currently has? If you're lowering their basic stats by 30%, it can be cleansed. Margaret's got cleansed. Melly's got passive cleanse, so he's going to cleanse at least one of the debuffs off. Probably, actually, I think it'll cleanse the attack lower, so it's the main one. It's kind of irritating. You know, they didn't even increase this, which I think is the saddest part. Like, make it like 50% or like even 40% would have been fine. But this poor Glox just got screwed over. Glox could have been the leaked Glox passive, which was an official leak, as you can see, because we got basically the same passive. Also, why is that bugged out? There we go. Which is get 30% per. Yes, 30% per, in my opinion, is still it's too much, in my opinion. I do agree, it's a little bit too much. But I think, like, 20% would have been fine for 60% defense-related stats. That would have been fine. And then maybe make it so, like, he gives himself basic stats per commandment or fairy on the field or something so he can still sort of, like, connect with the commandment. Because currently, the commandment is more of a hindrance to him and his team rather than, you know, oh, because he's a commandment, he works with commandments. Yeah, he does work with commandments, but it only really works with, like, Estarossa and AM Melee, because Purg Melee doesn't care about commandments, Traitor Melee didn't really care about any race, and the new Melee only cares about demons or Sitans. So, it's unfortunate. I'm putting Glox in the last place, unless he, you know, magically finds some insane content he's good at. The only content I see him currently being good at is Hero Arena, and that's because you have 4 characters up at a time, so you get 40% defense-related stats, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier, and you don't take less and you take less damage. Literally the only, like, current use that I'm going to use him for is that. Everything else, no. PvP, I'm just going to stick with Sins. Sins are reliable, and they've never let me down before. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.